Giannis requesting a trade might be the best thing to happen to the Pelicans. And no, not because they should go and get him or act as a facilitator. This gives New Orleans a lifeline, but only if they completely stay out of the Giannis sweepstakes entirely. It's Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, here with y'all on this Thursday, and we got a lot to talk about when it comes to trade rumors for the Pelicans. We'll look at Dejounte Murray wanting out, why the Pelicans need a little bit of patience, and an interesting Ja Morant trade update there. But we're going to start looking at Giannis, asking for a new home, a kind way of saying, please trade me, or trade demand. And the Pelicans still have some sort of control over future Bucks picks, so they should get in on this deal, whether it's trading for Giannis or acting as a facilitator and helping maybe the Bucks get their pick back, right, so the Pelicans can get something. The Pelicans just got thrown a lifeline. I'll explain how this pick works, why it's so interesting, and why the Pelicans need to stay completely out of anything at all to do with Giannis. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen. Today and every day, we're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 12,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. It means you listen Monday through Friday. You can also watch us on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network every weekday at 10:30 a.m. Same place you watch your Pelicans play. If you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. Again, we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, now the #1 sports podcast network. The Pelicans need to stay completely out of anything having to do with Giannis and his exit from the Milwaukee Bucks. At this point, it is inevitable. Whether it's at this trade deadline, by the way, if it's at this trade deadline, keep an eye on the Houston Rockets, or in the offseason when maybe a team like Golden State or the Minnesota Timberwolves or the Knicks can make better offers, the Miami Heat as well. There are some teams that could maybe pull this off on a one-to-one type of trade. Golden State's actually one of those teams kind of looking at how it could work, but most teams are going to need it to be a 3 or a 4 team or more trade. And so the Pelicans could potentially get in on this, right? They technically own the Bucks pick next year in the form of some sort of swap, but hold that thought here. So if you trade that, Milwaukee wants their own picks back if they're going to be bad. Otherwise, what's the point of being bad? We're learning that this year here in New Orleans. So that becomes pretty valuable. Maybe you can get a player for it. No, this pick, that the Pelicans have is a lifeline for this team. So the way it works, and this comes from the Dejounte Murray trade. More on him in a minute here. The Pelicans technically have 2 picks in the 2027 draft. They have a Bucks pick and their own pick. Both are, in theory, unprotected. They got that Bucks pick in the Drew Holiday trade. Then the Pelicans traded for Dejounte Murray, and the worst of those 2 picks goes to Atlanta. The Pelicans keep the better one. So they owned 2 picks, but kind of put a pick swap on it. One of those picks will go to Atlanta. We just don't know if it's the Pelicans pick or the Bucks pick in this case. But here's the thing. If both picks land in the top 4, the Pelicans keep them. That pick, whichever one it is that they traded to the Atlanta Hawks, is top 4 protected. So the official trade language is this. The more favorable of New Orleans and Milwaukee stays in New Orleans, and then the other to Atlanta if it's 5 through 30. If they're both 1 to 4, the Pelicans keep 2 top 4 picks. The Bucks this year are not good. They're a bad team right now. They currently are 18-27. They have the 7th best lottery odds. New Orleans has 3rd. You get rid of Giannis, that's not going to get very much better. It's only going to get worse. They're going to bottom out. Now, normally that would keep a team like the Bucks from trading away Giannis. There's no point in being bad if you don't own your picks to kind of reap the benefit of it. So why do it? Any picks you would trade Giannis for, yeah, you'll get a bunch of picks back, but they're going to be from that team that's now better and maybe in the 20s in some capacity. That doesn't do you a whole lot of good. So they've held on to Giannis as long as they possibly can. But now it does feel like things are coming to a head, and it at this point is, in the words of Thanos, inevitable that Giannis is going to be leaving. He might not be outright demanding a trade, but saying, I want to find a new home, or it's time to find a new home, and kind of going to both of the team and saying, like, it's best for all of us here if we just basically break up. He's dumping them, and he's trying to be nice about it. You know, many of us have been there, right, on the receiving end of that, or maybe the ones doing it. We get it. That's what's happening here. There is no discussion. There's no reconciliation between Giannis and the Bucks. He gone. It's as simple as that. And so the Pelicans, and we'll talk more about this in the next segment here, need to exercise some restraint. In the words of Guns N' Roses, have a little patience. They need to stay out of this entirely. Don't help make a deal happen. Make the Bucks take the worst offer that the best worst offer they can get. There's no point in trying to trade this pick away. I don't even know if you can trade it away, given the weird protections that's on it and the kind of swappiness of still owning 2 first-round picks. It's not a swap between the Bucks and the Pelicans like this year is. This year, the Pelicans get the better of their pick or the Bucks pick, and then they traded whichever those two there. Had the Pelicans not traded for Dejounte Murray, they would just own these 2 picks outright in the 2027 draft. So not this coming year, but the next year. That's a lifeline for a team. You will have a very realistic spot or chance at getting 2 top 4 picks. Look, I just simmed the lottery for fun here. Even if you both end up in the top 4, this year, let's say, right? This is going to go in. Well, actually, I'll save this for the next segment. It has more to do with why you need to have some patience here. But the Pelicans just got thrown a lifeline. The Bucks can't play hardball anymore. They're going to be bad for the foreseeable future. This year, the year after, and that lines up unbelievably well for the Pelicans. There's a magic number here. If you're an everydayer of the show this year, you know what it is already. 3. I'll tell you why that is coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. And they're going to handle everything. Your W-2s, self-employed forms, any other forms, and they're going to work to get you every deduction, probably ones you don't even know about. You can just upload your documents and go about your day and not be stressed whatsoever. You're going to get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives you a real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it all. So for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, you just got to file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get your life back. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join over 12,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. And if you're all about that everydayer life, we've got the new Everydayer Club. The trade deadline is literally a week away, and we want to give you a free month of our new Everydayer Club to help you get ready. If you need a group chat to keep up with all the chaos, join ours. The Everydayer Club gets you access to a group chat on Discord just for Pelicans fans, plus national chats where you can hang out with fans from across the league. You're also going to get ad-free versions of this show. And if you sign up by the trade deadline on February 5th, you can use code DEADLINE to get your first month free. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more. So the Pelicans, right now at the trade deadline, need to exercise some patience. If you're a longtime listener of the show, you kind of know me as pretty optimistic. I try and look for the good in this and why we want to keep watching the team and find those things, silver linings, if you will, and what's usually some pretty bad basketball in an awful season. This year, you've probably seen me not feel the exact same way, to put it mildly. I do not trust this front office to kind of get any sort of rebuild right or navigate the Pelicans out of this mess that they're in towards anything that has some sustainability to it. And by sustainability, I mean, could you just be decent for like 3 years? 3 years? Can you make the playoffs 3 years in a row? That's all I'm asking for, right? We're not looking for a 10-year contender or anything like that. And I've been very anti-trading for Ja Morant. It'd be fun. I totally get it. But it's not actually going to make them better. It only clogs up your books more. It's not going to really do anything in the long term for this team. But there is a quote from Mark Stein and Jake Fisher in the Steinline newsletter that makes me feel so much better about this front office. Quote, one source close to the process on New Orleans, quote, they didn't speak once to Memphis about trading for Ja Morant, end quote. Did not speak once to Memphis about trading for Ja Morant. Good. I tried to not hit the table too hard here. Good. This team needs patience. This team needs to not accelerate too fast when you have two promising rookies in Jeremiah Fears and Derik Queen. The fact that there was no Ja Morant contact, and who knows how true that is, let's say, that says the front office gets where this team is at and that it's a more daunting rebuild than it maybe seemed originally. It gets that ownership isn't forcing win-now moves that are short-sighted and going to come back to bite you like, say, I don't know, a Dejounte Murray trade in a couple of years. You have the potential for 2 top 4 picks in 2 years. That's the year that Fears and Queen would be entering their 3rd year in the league. They look good so far. They're rookies and not helping this team win is evidenced by the record. I have long said, back to the Anthony Davis era here in New Orleans, and this comes from talking to people around the league, other front office executives, rookies usually don't help you win until their 3rd year in the league. So in this hypothetical scenario where you get lucky, not in this coming lottery, but in the 2027 NBA draft lottery, and you land 2 top 4 picks, you can do whatever you want then. Your rookies, Fears and Queen, are 3rd-year players, and they're ready to lead you to the playoffs. That's when they start to impact winning. You want to win now move? Those picks could get you anybody you want in the league. And you pair them with the 2 young guys, now you're cooking with gas here. You've got something. Or you just do what the Thunder do and draft really good players and have them ready to go either when injuries happen, which always happens here in New Orleans, or when you get priced out of certain guys. Guys are going to eventually leave because they make too much money. You don't have it in this apron era of the salary cap, and you just have other guys ready to go. It's incredible how the Thunder have guys like Wiggins or Mitchell that just ready to do things. And that's by they just draft guys, develop those guys. Should someone leave, which I haven't really had to deal with yet, you got the next guy ready to go. It's a great position to be in. You don't want to make a win now move that costs you other stuff. You've wasted 2 really good potential trade pieces on moving up for Derik Queen because of a lack of patience. That's a different type of lack of patience. That's just you wanting like your cake right now. I don't want to wait for dessert. I want it right now. On Dejounte Murray, kind of a different era under David Griffin and what this team was expecting they could do after 49 wins, but they went after it, and we've seen how that worked out. We'll talk more about Murray in the next segment. Some of that's injuries, yeah, but he wasn't good before the injury happened here, and it doesn't seem like he wants to be here at all, and I think that's very clear right now. By not having any sort of contact or talking about Ja Morant, it says that this team gets it. The everydayers have heard me talk a lot that I just don't think this Pelicans team is self-aware of where they are. We kind of talked about it in yesterday's show with the loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's a game that like good teams win. The Thunder, a good team, played terribly too, I thought, and they found a way to win against a pretty much entirely healthy, other than Murray, New Orleans Pelicans squad. When you watch the Phoenix Suns on that same Tuesday night, they gutted out a win where they didn't have 3 of their top 6 guys against a Brooklyn Nets team, but they found a way to win. That's what good teams do. The Pelicans, even when they're healthy, have just not found a way to win consistently. And to me, that says they are not even close to contention next year. They're not close to the playoffs next year. So don't make a short-sighted win now move, because when you look at someone like Ja Morant, checks all the boxes for what this team would have historically done in the past. Ownership is antsy. They want to fill seats in the Smoothie King Center, which is a little bit lacking. Look, all bad teams are lacking, so this isn't a shot at New Orleans or anything like that. It's just a reality of it. No one was going to Pistons games when they were losing 28 straight games in the winter and snow and stuff like that. That place maybe had 5,000 people. You can look at it watching it on TV. It's not just a Pelicans thing. That's a rant. That's besides the point. They want to fill the arena up, make some money, get into the postseason, maybe through the play-in tournament, maybe as just the 6th seed would be cool. Get swept, lose in the first round, but hey, 2 home games, kind of fun. And then you can pitch hope next year, renew season tickets, and we go through this whole same song and dance again. Well, Ja Morant's exciting. He'd put butts in seats. He might get you into the play-in tournament with this team, and he's available for cheap from what we've heard. Now, this could be posturing coming from the Memphis Grizzlies being like, no, it's not the Pelicans that we're offering that stuff. It's other teams. We have multiple people. It wasn't just the Pelicans that are only interested in him, as a way to try and negotiate through the media and drum up prices. Sure. I think Mark Stein and Jake Fisher, 2 guys that I very much trust, don't make me think that they're being used like that. And as I said in yesterday's show, rumors drive all of this. Rumors drive a lot of this industry. You want these rumors out there. Talking more about how the Pelicans could trade for him, how, Ja Morant could get traded is far sexier and will earn you more views and thus, in theory, more money. It doesn't quite work like that. Than saying like, nah, there's nothing here. So I tend to kind of believe this reporting a little bit, I think. So that's kind of where it stands when it comes to this. I actually, because of that, from 2 people I very much trust, saying they did not want to speak to Memphis about trading for Ja Morant, makes me feel so much better. You want a reason for optimism, truthfully, that's it. They've looked in the mirror. I've got one over here. They've looked in the mirror and they're like, oh, we don't look as good as we thought we looked. Exactly. That's what you want this franchise to try and realize, so that they can go and have some patience. We've seen that Murray didn't work out. Queen will work out. He looks like a good player, but the process over results is important too, and the process was very much bad. The process would have been bad trying to trade for Ja Morant, but now you've been thrown a lifeline where you have like a very realistic. The Pelicans could be terrible next year. Cool, you end up with a top 4 pick. The Bucks, terrible next year. Could be a top 4 pick. Look, it's also still a pick swap. Maybe New Orleans isn't as bad. Maybe the rookies take a bigger leap. They're not good, but say they end up with the 11th overall pick and the Bucks are a top 4. I'd still rather be able to swap and send the 11th pick to Atlanta and get the top 4 pick. I just simmed the lottery here. Milwaukee's 7th. The Pelicans are 3. Milwaukee jumped up to the number 2 spot and the Pelicans fell 3 spots to the 6th. I'd still rather have 2 than 6 in a draft. This is, in my opinion, as I've been saying, I'm going to hammer this point, a bit of a lifeline for New Orleans. It might not work out, man, it's there. And they should not screw this up by being too short-sighted. And the fact that this team might have some patience, good. Because look, the last non-patient move they had, big one, was Dejounte Murray. He apparently wants out. Let's talk about that. It's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Rocket Money. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming. Between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every single transaction or hunt down a hidden fee? So that's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. I had a friend who used Rocket Money, and they were paying for like 3 music subscriptions, different services that they didn't even realize they were paying for. This is going to help you cancel them. It's also not easy to cancel those. 2 taps, boom, it's gone. They also have automatic transaction categorization, which is a game changer. You're going to finally see exactly where your money goes each month, so you can set budgets and goals and get personalized insights. You can even receive real-time alerts for large transactions, upcoming bills, and low balances. So let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join over 12,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube. Watch us on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network and become an everydayer. Let me know if you're an everydayer in the comments down below. For your second listen, it's Locked On Saints with Ross Jackson, covering everything black and gold at the Senior Bowl, doing in-person scouting, up-close scouting. Go give Locked On Saints, make it your second listen today, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. All right, Dejounte Murray. We've kind of been talking about how that trade didn't work and giving up potentially really good assets because you weren't patient. We knew eventually Giannis was going to leave. I'd like to have, that pick stuff better back this year, right? Look, maybe worst case scenario happens in the lottery and you could have at least just swapped with the Bucks. Now that is not going to be a case whatsoever. And the better of that pick is going to go to the Atlanta Hawks. Think long-term about all of this. And I hope that's what the Pelicans are doing, because now the Dejounte Murray trade, talk about a deal that a move that just completely blew up. And look, it mainly blew up due to injury. When we were talking about this early in the week, Spot Rack, my favorite kind of cap website, rated this as the 5th worst contract in the NBA, mainly just due to the injury. And then what's the upside for Dejounte Murray? That's kind of the situation here. Coming off of an Achilles, it's been almost exactly a year, a little bit over. We still don't have any update, which is a little weird, but also this is kind of the time it takes. And now, according to Brett Siegel of Clutch Sports, it's believed that Clutch Points. It's believed that Clutch, with a K, Sports, and Murray would like a change of scenery, especially with the veteran guard finding himself in a crowded backcourt upon returning from his Achilles injury. There's no surprise on all of this. This relationship between Murray and the franchise really soured quickly with his injury, where, he went on a podcast and did not say great things about the team. And there also seemed to be a little bit of confusion on the team from people I've talked to, because they have their table time and he was saying he couldn't get it. And everyone's kind of got their assigned time. If you need more, it's not hard to get more. Maybe he thought he just needed more and, than what they could offer. I don't know. But it just hasn't worked out. And truthfully, Murray on this team before the injury was not playing great. He peaked, it feels like, in 2022 when he made an all-star game with the San Antonio Spurs. And since then, it's kind of gone just a little bit downhill. He wasn't bad per se in Atlanta, but never really quite meshed with Trae Young in the way that you would have hoped. In New Orleans last year, he shot under 30% for just the second time from 3 in his career. He basically averaged, since that all-star season, a career low 17.5 points per game, played 31 games. But the defense did not look particularly good. He was getting torched at the point of attack. He just wasn't the impactful player that we were really hoping to see from him. He can still rebound well. He can put up assists as a guard too, but it just didn't work out. And, you had David Griffin, who had a 49-win team and then traded away a lot of the guys that really wanted to be here, and then future draft picks for this kind of prioritizing a win now move. And then, around a fragile team, let's call it, with injuries that year to Zion, this is last year, to Zion, Williamson, and Ingram, they just went nowhere. And then Murray gets injured and it was a complete and total mess. Him wanting a change of scenery, Sure. It just seems like he didn't like it here. Didn't really want to be here originally. This wasn't on his list of like expected destinations, even though they said otherwise in the beginning of that when the trade happened. It's just all a mess. It's probably best for all parties involved to move on from this. I completely get it. And it's not like we think of this franchise as the most well-run franchise here. So Murray having gripes about it, probably totally fair, personally, when it comes down to it. This isn't like a trade demand. The Pelicans, from what we've heard, are trying to move him. They're trying to move Jordan Poole. I think Murray is not going to have any sort of value around the league. You would need to attach draft picks to his contract to move him. The team doesn't need to do that. If you're just going to go through a rebuild, if this team is actually like, yeah, we realize we're not going to be good next year and Ja Morant doesn't fix things, keep Murray unless you just find a sweet deal and let him rehab his value and move him in, the next trade deadline or next off season when you really would be going for it in the third year of Jeremiah Fears, of Derik Queen. That's really what you want to see happen going into their third year. That's what, to me, would make a lot of sense for this team to do. And I think they're well positioned to do this. Being bad for at least one more year, probably two, hurts. It's more fun to cover winning basketball. I mean that. But I do think it's probably best in the long term for New Orleans. From the latest reporting, it sounds like they kind of get it. That's good. Not fun, but good. But we'll also find out over the next 7 days. Tomorrow's show, let's talk about Yves Missy's value. What does a Godfather offer for Trey Murphy or Herb Jones look like as well? We're going to cover it all here on Locked On Pelicans. That's going to do it for this episode. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. This is the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. See y'all tomorrow. More trade talk.